It's time to encourage you by bringing some reality about reforms and how long they take. We'll talk about that tonight. This has to do with Hegseth, the Department of Government Efficiency. Mike Benz is here to tell us how the deep state managed to lose this election. Corey DeAngelis, all that and more coming up on I'm Right. All right, so let's have a little heart-to-heart, little chat, shall we, about reform and saving the country and the Senate and Pete Hegseth and everything else. But before we get to that, I had a buddy one time in the Marines, and he was always training. He did the strongman competitions. Have you ever seen those, the world's strongest man stuff? In fact, I lived in a mobile home with this guy for quite some time. That's a true story. I've had a long life. And he would wake up every morning and he would make a pound of bacon. A pound. Not kidding. Just drop the whole pack in there and eat the whole thing. Anyway, he was a strongman, big strongman guy, always training, lifting, always doing that stuff. And because he did that, he would train other dudes and ladies who wanted to get big and strong and buff, maybe do competitions or just get big. And so we had a lot of time together. Again, we lived in a mobile home together. A lot of time together, and he's telling me all the time when I'd ask about, what were the frustrations of the day? We're just gabbing about things. And he would say, my biggest frustration is you get somebody in there, somebody motivated. He wants to, maybe he's flabby. Maybe he wants to turn himself around, or maybe he wants to get big, he wants to get strong. And he said the guy will show up and he'll just kill himself, work really hard, just lifting hard, sweating. And he'll show up. Couple weeks, he'll do this. And then he'll look at himself in the mirror. He doesn't feel big and strong. He's not there. And he said, my biggest frustration is getting through to these people that getting big and strong and buff and strongman competitions takes time. They want it now. And they're working hard for it. They want it now. They're working hard. They want to see the results. I want to be the strong man. I want to be able to lift 1,000 pounds. Why can't I? You got to get through to them that it takes time. You want the results now. You need the results now. I'm going to the beach next month. But results don't come like that. So let's have a chat about what's happening right now in the United States Senate in various ways. Pete Hegseth is obviously something big for us here on the show. We talk about it all the time, how important it is that Pete Hegseth is confirmed as Secretary of Defense for a variety of reasons. One, Pete Hegseth knows exactly what the men on the ground go through. He has a great idea to remove all the commie filth from the military. He's exactly what we need, an outside-of-the-box thinking reformer type, not the good old boy General Admiral network. We know he's sharp. We know he can get the job done. We need to get Pete Hegseth through. You want him through. I want Pete Hegseth through. We're going to reform it. We're going to change things. But we have to understand something that sucks, but it's true. The old establishment GOP, specifically in the Senate, we'll talk about the Senate for now. The establishment GOP, they do not see themselves as being the vanguard of reform that's coming to clean out the deep state and wipe all these commies out. That's not how they see themselves. That's how you want them to see themselves. That's how I want them to see themselves. That's how we want all of our elected representatives to see themselves. We want them to be our tip of the spear. Go, lead us, reform things, let's go. But that's not how they see themselves. They see themselves, the Mitch McConnells, John Cornyn's, Joni Ernst, these Mike Rounds, John Thune, the old establishment GOP guard in the Senate, they see themselves completely the opposite. You see, you're a charging army. You got the spears out. You're getting ready to attack. And you want to see them in the front. But they see themselves as being on the other side. They see themselves as being the front line of defense, slowing you down from making real change. These people are highly, highly invested in everything staying the same. Go take a look at Joni Ernst. Go take a look at her FEC report. You know you can do this. You can be a journalist yourself. You realize that. It's free. The FEC, fec.gov, right there on your phone. Pull it up right there. You can look at all those defense contractor donations to Joni Ernst. So Joni Ernst, she went on Fox News and wouldn't commit to Pete Hegseth. Why?
It doesn't sound on your answer that you've gotten to a yes. If I'm wrong about that, correct me. And if that is the case, it sounds to me as if the hearing will be critical for his nomination. Am I right about that?
I think you are right. I think for a number of our senators, they want to make sure that any allegations have been cleared, and that's why we have to have a very thorough vetting process. And that's why I was happy to sit down with Pete and have that conversation with him yesterday. So again, all I will say at this time is that we did have a very thorough discussion over a number of those issues, and the vetting will continue, I am certain, through the next month or so until we approach that hearing date.
Okay. The ultimate politician non-committal answer. Want to make sure allegations have been cleared, but that, of course, doesn't make any sense because all allegations have been cleared. Any allegations they've dug up have been old, cleared, done, gone. All allegations have been cleared. So why would you give an answer like that? Because she doesn't want to vote for Pete Hegseth. Why doesn't she want to vote for Pete Hegseth? I don't know. Maybe it's campaign donations. Maybe she's being blackmailed. There's a lot of that out there. But that's not just something that happens in the movies on your little Netflix special. That's real. That's how life works. These intelligence agencies, military-industrial complex, they will gather blackmail information on you and use it against you. It's happened really a million times throughout history. Maybe it's that. I don't know. I don't know what the reasons are. But you, Joni Ernst, is sitting there, senator from the red state of Iowa. You, me, we would think, wow, she's going to be tip of the spear. She's leading the charge, right? Joni Ernst doesn't see herself as leading the charge. She's on the other side. She sees herself, her role, as slowing the charge. And speaking of the Senate, you know, look, it's not just about Hegseth here. There's been a lot of talk and a lot of excitement, with me too, I'm pointing fingers here, about Elon Musk and Vivek taking over this Department of Government Efficiency and slashing the spending. You know that's something I'm hot on. I've always been hot on a long enough timeline. It's the only thing that matters. If we collapse financially, then nothing else is going to matter, right? So I've been all over that. You're all over that. And we hear Elon Musk, he keeps buying companies like Twitter and he's firing 80% of the workforce and streamlining things. And Vivek's going to get in there and we're excited. And yeah, going to cut this and cut that and cut this and cut that. I saw a report this morning. Of course, the Senate, GOP Senate aides, they're already scoffing at the very notion of Vivek and Elon. These guys think it's going to be easy. Too bad we can't do this and we can't do that. And we can't do this and we won't be allowed to do that. And you're not going to do this and blah, 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 blah. Elon and Vivek are bouncing around Capitol Hill as we speak, meeting with all these people, trying to figure out how to get things done. So this is a long, long buildup for me to say this to you. And it's going to sound discouraging, but it is not. So just stay with me. You're not going to get big from lifting weights for 2 weeks. We're not going to save the United States of America because the people rallied and rose up and elected Donald Trump as president of the United States of America. That was a critical battle to win, and I'm glad we won it. We did good. You did good. We all did good. We pitched in, we won, we told our friends we did good. It was an important battle, but it was one battle. There are so many more battles ahead of us we have to win, and there are so many important battles behind us that we lost that we are still paying for and will pay for quite some time. Part of the reason you're not getting big after 2 weeks of lifting heavy at the gym is you spent 35 years eating donuts all the time. And yes, I'm glad those decisions are being turned around, but you're still going to pay a penalty for that. We in the GOP are going to pay a penalty for quite some time for being negligent about our red state primaries. We have always lived in these safe red states. Those of us who do, maybe you don't. But if you live in Texas, you live in South Carolina, South Dakota, Iowa, any of these places, the animals aren't rampaging in the streets. Things are fairly clean. Your taxes are reasonable. And so we don't get motivated when it comes time to primary Joni Ernst. If we even show up, you probably voted for her. Well, I mean, I met her once and she was sweet and kind of pretty. We've lost 1,000 battles behind us, and now the chickens have come home to roost, and now we're all mad. They have to do. They don't. So, what does that mean? That means we focus on more battles. We don't quit. Don't stop going to the gym. That means we need some scalps. We need to start taking some Senate scalps in the primaries. We do. And don't think, well, there's too many. Jesse, there's 10, 15 rhinos. Take one. Take one scalp. Take out one of these GOP establishment types, one in a red state primary, and see what happens to the rest of them. These people are constantly spitting in our faces and disrespecting us because we haven't earned their respect. What do I mean by that? They're used to doing things we hate. And then once every 6 years, they spend $50 million, run some ads on television about how tough they are on the border. And I love guns. And they know the GOP primary voter will be too stupid and lazy to go vote them out. That is what we must change. And if we do, if we take one scalp, the others will sit up and be put on notice. Uh-oh, I don't think I can make that vote. What if they do to me what they just did to John Cornyn? One scalp. Let's go get one. All that may have made you uncomfortable, but I am right. If it made you uncomfortable, maybe it's because your T levels are too low and you need to go get a natural herbal supplement stack from Chalk. Me, I take a male vitality stack every day. That's why I want 10 scalps. Male vitality stacks, female vitality stacks, natural herbal supplements. It's the only way to go. It's your first stop, not your last. Well, I've tried everything. Now I should try natural. No. Natural first. You've seen these moron doctors out there. Natural solutions first. That's what Chalk's all about. And they're anti-communists like we are. Huge discounts on subscriptions in December. Chalk.com/JesseTV. We'll be back. Well, we all know already about the Hunter Biden pardon, and we've spoken briefly about the rumors floating around D.C. about a preemptive pardon for people like Liz Cheney, Fauci, Adam Schiff. Kind of an interesting development. Joining me now to talk about that and other things, Mike Benz, Executive Director of the Foundation for Freedom Online. Okay, Mike, first of all, I want to talk about this backdated pardon because you are such a wealth of information on this. Everyone by now realizes it was backdated to start right before Hunter Biden started his work for Burisma in Ukraine. And what is staggering to most people is how many of the Biden roads lead to Ukraine, which is where we, of course, are spending a fortune to defend right now. Talk about that.
Well, it's incredible. I mean, the fact is this is the most expansive pardon, as I understand it, in U.S. history. 11 years, get out of all crimes free card. It's for all crimes charged and uncharged, which means Hunter Biden could have committed an act of murder anytime in the last 11 years, in theory, and can't be charged for it. The fact is. This starts in January 2014. The coup in Ukraine kicked off in March 2014. The counter coup, where the eastern side of Ukraine broke away, happened the following month. The month after that, Hunter Biden joins the board of Burisma. And then, the fact is Burisma was being used as an instrument of statecraft by the U.S. in order to pry Russia off of the European gas market. The whole point of the company, in terms of why it was being backed by 5 different federal capacities. I mean, think about this, right? Burisma was being supported by U.S. aid. Okay, U.S. aid is supposed to be our humanitarian aid to nonprofit organizations, wink, wink, and it's funding a for-profit private sector gas company in Ukraine. It's being supported by the State Department. The Hunter Biden's law firm drew up a memo requesting help from the State Department and pitching itself as a bulwark against Russian gas. You had the Pentagon and the State Department funding the Atlantic Council. They fund over $1 million each to the Atlantic Council. The Atlantic Council has seven CIA directors on its board of directors. The Atlantic Council had a formal deal, a cooperation agreement signed with Burisma on January 19th, 2017. That is one day before Trump was inaugurated into term one. Also, the Atlantic Council is NATO's think tank. So you basically have NATO, the State Department, the Pentagon, and USAID all backing Burisma. And then you had, obviously the murky role of the CIA itself, which is something that I have been suggesting very loudly for a very long time. Obviously, the CIA can't come out and say it, but the CIA waived the IRS off of Hunter Biden's sugar daddy. The CIA has been assisting the State Department with its long-range plan to win the energy market in Europe, or at least to pry Russia off of it. Hunter Biden was on the chairman's advisory board of NDI, the National Democratic Institute, which is effectively the CIA wing of the DNC. Oh, and by the way, remember the other board of director who was sort of notorious, who also joined Burisma that year, was Cofer Black. Cofer Black, who had spent 30 years in the CIA, won a CIA Distinguished Medal Award, and was Mitt Romney's Sherpa to the intelligence community, was on the board of directors of Burisma right next to Hunter Biden. And so, the issue is the best way to find all this stuff out is through prosecutions, because prosecutions give you unfettered access to investigations. And the prosecution is the only reason the CIA had to step in to stop the investigation into Hunter's financing sources. So what's the best way to shut down a prosecution and therefore an investigation into the diplomatic octopus arm of the U.S. government's involvement in the seedy dealings of Burisma and in Ukraine? Well, you issue a blanket pardon to the Where's Waldo figure who's running through all the different pages of this story, so that you can't sick the Justice Department on an investigation, because there's no underlying crime, because there's a get out of all crimes free pass.
Jeez. So you think Hunter Biden in this blanket pardon, you think all the powers that be probably view Hunter Biden as the choke point hatch that as long as they seal it, the other compartments of the vessel won't go down to the bottom of the ocean? That sounds like what you're saying to me.
I think definitely one of the main ones. I mean, I think we're going to see James Biden and other people, who run through the Garrett Ziegler, Marco Polo, picture book, a very colorful picture book, I should note. I think that you may see other key figures from that as well get blanket pardons, and I think that those will receive far less media fanfare. But Hunter played a very, very unique role, and I can almost see why he turned to crack cocaine. This must have been unbelievably stressful, all of the things that he was managing for the Biden crime family. I mean, it was Ukraine, it was Mexico, it was China, and this guy, remember, one of Hunter's clients in his consulting firm was the head of Chinese intelligence. And meanwhile, through the other side of the Biden family business, he's trying to sell Chinese investors to purchase American LNG ports, liquefied natural gas. He's an equity investor. He owns almost 10% in this, E-Plata, this private microfinancing company to provide banking services for illegal immigrants coming up the border through Mexico, while his father is keeping open the border and then issuing a Justice Department edict to threaten banks if they don't provide banking services for illegal immigrants. I mean, this guy must have been managing so many different crooked projects, so many different need to know, special compartmentalized things of what story to tell the family, what story to tell the investors, what story to tell the government, what story to tell the press. It's almost enough to make you turn to drugs and hookers.
Oh, Lee. Okay, let's switch gears here and talk about the preemptive pardons for people like Fauci, Liz Cheney, Adam Schiff. Can you help me understand why that would be necessary? And I know they've done a bunch of things we don't like, and to say they committed crimes would be obvious to me, but have they committed crimes you think that they should be pursued for? What's this about?
Well, this Justice Department under Merrick Garland has been awfully creative about finding crimes and stretching the limits of creativity to find creative ways to charge their political enemies. I mean, I think everybody saw that in right out the gate with the Douglas Mackey case, where it was trial by meme. You saw the unbelievable creativity to prosecute Trump himself. You saw the KKK Act, the Ku Klux Klan Act, is what was invoked in order to prosecute Donald Trump. You had these really creative concepts around deprivation of rights. You're basically arguing that it's effectively a kind of RICO crime to work together with multiple people to deprive Americans of access to rights granted to them under the Constitution. That is unbelievably broad when you squint and think about it. If you have a malicious prosecutor who's willing to dip into that and not care about the institutional blowback in terms of the reputation of the Justice Department, you could, from Biden's perspective, I could see hundreds of crimes with all those individuals that would, fit that bill. I mean, think about when you're talking about Fauci. I mean, we now have the Republican-controlled Congress, an official report saying their conclusion on the basis of a years-long investigation is that COVID-19 was created by Tony Fauci. I mean, in so many words, right? I mean, think what they said is created. It was a man-made because of gain-of-function research that resulted in a lab leak from the Wuhan lab. Well, everyone knows the Wuhan lab story runs through Ralph Barrick and the North Carolina lab and the USAID funding and the DARPA grants and that sort of weaving from the Rocky Mountain lab into North Carolina, and then the partnerships that American universities and American research centers doing this government-funded gain-of-function research had with the Wuhan lab. So the fact is, they said, the official position of the House of Representatives is Tony Fauci's gain-of-function research, which Tony Fauci, remember, perjured himself in Congress. Remember, Tony Fauci said, "Oh, we don't do gain-of-function." This was the big fight between Rand Paul and Tony Fauci. But just like James Clapper, when James Clapper lied about bulk not the NSA not doing bulk surveillance, and nobody could call him on it at the time because Edward Snowden hadn't yet leaked highly classified NSA documents. But then once the leak came out, James Clapper was not charged with perjury. Well, that's because of the politics of it. Nobody wanted to take on the intelligence community at the time or suffer the diplomatic blowback of disgracing a major U.S. intelligence official. I think Tony Fauci has had that cloak of protection force field to date, with an HHS run by Bobby Kennedy, who I should note, his best-selling book is called The Real Anthony Fauci, with Jay Bhattacharya at the NIH, who was called a fringe epidemiologist by Fauci and company, and with so much of the base fired up about seeking justice for Fauci's potential crimes against humanity, that force field may run out. And frankly, a mere charge of perjury is a slap on the wrist when you consider the sheer extent of what he may actually be responsible for. But I think a preemptive pardon is a sort of political way of saying Trump's going to weaponize the Justice Department, so I'm going to protect this good man from the anticipated weaponization while using that as cover to actually bury all of his crimes.
No doubt about it. Mike, thank you, brother. As always, appreciate it. All right, let's talk about kids' education. Corey DeAngelis is going to join us in a moment. Before we do that, let's talk about Pure Talk. It's Christmas season. It's time to start thinking about what we're going to get for everybody. The clock is ticking here, and why not a new phone and a new phone service? You see, when you switch to Pure Talk from Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile, oh, you're going to pay less. My bill got cut in half. Those companies hate you. Pure Talk, they're led by a Vietnam veteran. They are the most patriotic company I think I've ever seen in my entire life. They hire Americans. When you get a hold of someone there, they speak English. This company is wonderful. And they have all the new phones, whatever you need. iPhones, Androids, whatever you're looking for. Switch your whole family. It's a nice little gift, isn't it? puretalk.com/JesseTV. 'Tis the season for a new phone. We'll be back. Education's still kind of important. Now, what do we make of the new education secretary? Where are we going? Are we notching wins at a local level? Joining me now to talk about all that, Corey DeAngelis, of course, author of the book, The Parent Revolution, guy who's been all over this stuff. Okay, Corey, the momentum feels like since COVID, it's been with us, but I don't want to go off of feels. What are you seeing? Because you know all kinds of stuff about this.
Yeah, the teachers unions overplayed their hand with COVID, showed conservatives what was happening in the classroom, and revealed the rot in the government school system. And now we have 12 states with universal school choice, meaning all families can take their kids' taxpayer money to the school that works best for them. And Trump won the parent vote by 9 points. That represented a 15-point shift towards the right on the issue of education since 2020 alone. Trump also won with Latino men. That represented a 35-point shift to the right. Catholics also went towards Trump by about 18 points, and Catholics tend to be very strong to abolish the Department of Education like he has. He picked Linda McMahon. Let's get ready to rumble. Let's get rid of that department and send the education back to the states. We already have a bill in Congress right now. Well, we have a couple. One, for universal school choice. It's already made it out of committee, the Educational Choice for Children Act. But more recently, Senator Mike Rounds out of South Dakota, Republican, he put out a bill to do just that, to abolish the Department of Education. It's to return education back to the states. Some pieces of the department, including the Civil Rights Division, would go to the Department of Justice, but it would get rid of the Department of Education altogether, have block grants go back to the individual states. And so it looks like we're having a great time on the education front.
Okay, Corey, expand on Linda McMahon more. A lot of people have heard the name, obviously familiar with the McMahon family, but what can we expect from this? I've heard things on both sides about people who are thrilled, people who are mortified. Tell us about this.
Well, I hope the teachers unions are mortified. Becky Pringle, who's the head of the National Education Association, the largest labor union in the country, they actually have a federal charter that started in 1906. It makes no sense. It's the only labor union that has one. We should revoke that federal charter of that union. That 99% of their money goes to the Democrats each election cycle. It's a money laundering operation. But Linda McMahon is a supporter of school choice. She's said a lot of great things in support of school choice. Trump, in his announcement of the pick, pointed out that she's a strong supporter of school choice. So I think the most likely thing to happen as far as legislation is concerned is that Educational Choice for Children Act. It would supercharge the school choice revolution that's already happening in red states because the unions overplayed their hand, but it would also expand opportunities in education to families who happen to live in blue states too. It's not a federal program that's part of the Department of Education. You can abolish the department while also have this federal tax credit. You get to keep more of your own money to use for K through 12 education expenses. Again, it already came out of committee. Donald Trump recently on Fox and Friends said he would sign the bill, and Republicans have a trifecta going into 2025. So the GOP has become the parents' party. Linda McMahon is a great pick to expand school choice and return education back to the states.
Corey, what can she do without a law? Because obviously, as you know, we have a 5-seat majority in the House, a very slim majority in the Senate, and most of those are complete weenies. Let's just assume, for the sake of argument, we aren't going to get that wonderful law through. She still has a great deal of authority, right?
Yeah, well, when it comes to abolishing the Department of Education, she couldn't do that. She couldn't just snap her fingers and pass a school choice bill either. So that there are things that she needs to have congressional backing, including the department being abolished. And but she could also go do some of the DeVos era Title IX stuff to protect girls' sports, for example. These are some executive actions that she can take. But a lot of the big ticket items do require Congress. And it's at this point, we need to hold Republicans accountable to their own party platform. Elon Musk has talked about engaging in the primaries. That is a very important thing to do, to hold your own party accountable for standing up for parental rights in education. This is true in my home state of Texas, too. We had a lot of rhinos who voted against school choice earlier this year. They got annihilated in the primaries. 21 of them voted against their own party platform in the Texas House. Guess what? 14 of them are gone. Only 7 of them are returning, and 2 of those 7 got the message. They already signed a pledge to support universal school choice. So sometimes you just have to get close enough. So that's the way our government works. We need to have the legislative bodies back the policies too. And the parents, the boots on the ground, need to hold their feet to the fire, to watch what they're doing, not just what they're saying.
Corey, you mentioned earlier that 12 states have already passed these school choice bills, but even a light glance at the map of this country shows we have a lot more than just 12 red states. Why isn't this at least every GOP state? I know California is not going to do it, right? It's states run by the teachers union, but why isn't every red state doing this? What's the holdup? Who's the holdup?
Yeah, like in Texas, you had rhinos in the House that were siding with the teachers unions and with the status quo special interest and against their own party and against, more importantly, their constituents, the primary voters who support school choice. But that is going away soon, and it already is starting because parents are paying attention now. They're a voting bloc that's more powerful than the government school unions because they care about their kids more than anybody else, certainly more than bureaucrats sitting in offices hundreds of miles away. So, I mean, we already knew the teachers unions own the Democratic Party. I mean, Randy Weingarten's union, every single election cycle, more than 98% of their campaign contributions go to Democrats. It's a money laundering operation. It ought to be illegal. But in red states, the unions, they're dumb in a lot of ways, but they're smart politically sometimes in that they know they're not going to get a Democrat majority, so they play in Republican primaries pretty heavily, sometimes behind the scenes. They did that this year in Texas, where they were setting up a PAC called Defend Rural Texas that they were funding, and through the back door, they were supporting these Republicans. But publicly, they only endorsed Democrats. They endorsed 77 people in Texas in the legislative races, but the unions, because they knew that being affiliated with Republicans at this point is damaging to them because of their other far left causes that they engage in. And before it wasn't like that. So this is good news that the unions are seeing that their endorsement in some cases is the political kiss of death for conservatives. That's making conservatives run away from them. And at the end of the day, that pressure is going to lead to full-throated school choice in all the red states. It's already happening. And then in blue states, it's going to become so damaging for the left to oppose parents that they're either going to lose, like we saw with Terry McAuliffe in Virginia losing to Glenn Youngkin on the education issue, or those states might become red states. That could happen, or they'll have to start defecting on the issue and start to have to listen to the kids union, the parents, as opposed to just the teachers union. And this is all good news. We're not there yet. We haven't reached utopia. We're not we don't have education freedom everywhere, but we're winning the battle one day at a time.
One day at a time. Keep going, brother. Appreciate you very much. All right. Abby Johnson is going to join us next, talk about this Supreme Court stuff, some pro-life issues. Before we talk to Abby Johnson, let's talk about how you feel when you wake up in the mornings. How do you feel? You feel rested? You feel good? Or when you wake up all the time and you think to yourself, today's going to suck. I'm so tired. Why don't you try Dream Powder? Just try it. Buy one bag of Dream Powder. Just try Dream Powder. You'll never go back. It's hot chocolate. Delicious hot chocolate. They have brownie batter and chocolate cinnamon, all these different flavors, but it's just a cup of hot chocolate, but it's got natural things in it that'll put you to sleep and have you sleep so well when you wake up you feel good. It's not chemical, medical filth, natural things. Drift off to sleep, wake up every day feeling great. Go to shopbeam.com/Jesse Kelly. You will love it. Shopbeam.com/Jesse Kelly. We'll be back. There was a big Supreme Court hearing yesterday, and there were some encouraging things said and some absolutely horrific things said. But long story short, we have a long way to go until we're a country where valuing the life of a child is universal. I'll just put it to you that way. Joining me now, Dr. Abby Johnson, pro-life advocate, probably the leading pro-life advocate in the country. Okay, Abby, what did you make of the hearing? Obviously, I heard the crazy things that were said, but I was encouraged. I think we're probably going to get a good ruling out of all this.
I think so. I think based on what I heard, I think that we will. Of course, I mean, you never know. I hate to completely predict one way or another. With Roberts on the court, we really never know. But I am hoping that we will get a favorable ruling.
Abby, where are we at on the battle for the unborn? Obviously, I understand, and I'm frustrated by it, but I understand the national GOP has really walked away from this, and I got it. Okay, fine. But the fight is not necessarily national anymore. It's with the different states. Where are we there?
We had a really, I think Florida and their Amendment 8, the success of that was a huge boost to the pro-life community. Now, we did lose Missouri, their Amendment 3, but we did have some successes. We had some losses. I think Florida's success was it was a victory for the nation, really, because I think that, and you and I talked about this before on the show, if Florida would have sunk, I think that it would have given them the opportunity to go after other conservative states like Texas, like Louisiana, like Alabama, Mississippi, all these southern states. I think because there wasn't a failure there in Florida, I think it really did take some momentum, some steam out of their sails. So I think that was a good thing. I think that it has really de-escalated the momentum that they had after Ohio, after winning in Ohio. I think that it has knocked them down a few pegs, and I do think that we have a little bit of an advantage right now after the election, especially since Kamala Harris didn't win, and she ran her entire platform on the fact that she wanted something similar to Roe back on the books for this nation.
Abby, why did we win in Florida? Because it had been getting pretty disheartening, as you and I have talked about before. You're looking at Ohio, you look at all these things. So Why did Florida turn out to be a victory for us? What did we do right there, or what did they do wrong?
Florida won and had a decisive victory because of the leadership there, because of Governor Ron DeSantis. Ohio lost because there was really no cohesive leadership. You had many, many, many different conservative and different pro-life groups coming into the state, doing their own thing, having their own campaigns, having completely different messaging, different pots of money coming in. There was no cohesiveness. There was no unity. Everybody was putting out a different message, and there was a lot of confusion. And that is why the Ohio amendment lost. The Florida amendment won because you had a leader in Ron DeSantis, and he basically said, all of the groups that want to come in here in Florida are going to have to stand behind me and the message that we're giving out from the state. And that was why there was so much. I mean, it was an overwhelming success.
Gosh, that is freaking encouraging. What's the next battle? What should we be looking for, Abby? What state is it?
I think that they're going to kind of start in the Midwest. So they've already taken Missouri. So I think we're going to be looking at the Midwest, Indiana, Iowa, all of those states. I think they're going to be going for those. I mean, the West Coast, the left coast, they've already, abortion is already enshrined there. So, and I think that they know that the South is sort of off limits now, since they lost in Florida. So I think that they're going to be targeting the Midwest.
Abby, thank you so much. I appreciate you. All right, we have Lighten the Mood next. All right, it is time to lighten the mood. And I don't know if you heard, but I had broken my previous pen. I was upset about it. And so I went on a search to find a new pen, because there's nothing more glorious than finding the perfect pen that has everything a pen should have. And I found one, and then I lost it.
It's more than just being able to click your pen, right? It's more than just having that smooth as silk writing. Honestly, I'm writing right now and you can't even tell. As I'm talking to you on the air, I'm also writing. This kind of pen allows you to do both because it's just silky smooth. It's more than that though. It's the weight. It can't be too light. That feels cheap. It can't be too heavy. I'm not bodybuilding here. I'm writing things down. When you have a pen that's perfectly balanced, it puts you in a whole different category, and that's what I have. And Chris doesn't. And you should see how jealous he is.
A few moments later.
But I have some heavy news. So that pen that I've been talking about, you know how I was doing the clicking thing a lot? The pen broke. I think it's still working. It's still functional, but the little thingy at the end that I was clicking like that, it popped off and now it won't stay in anymore. I don't know if this turned out to be a very good pen. And now I wish I could take a lot of the things I've said back, but either way, pen's gone. No, I don't want to borrow your pen, Chris. Your pen sucks. I'd rather have my broken pen than your crappy pen.
If you want more of that kind of stuff, go subscribe to the YouTube channel. You can scan it on your phone there. It's free. YouTube.com/@JesseKellyDC. I missed that pen. I'll see you tomorrow. I would thank you for coming to my YouTube channel, but I know how brilliant it is, and I know you love it here. So subscribe and watch. We're going to start really ramping things up and putting some funny stuff, some interesting stuff out there, some collaborations. Either way, my YouTube channel is officially the place to be. So stick around.